Good morning, TVA board members and Mr. Johnson, President Johnson. My name's Gary Farwick. My wife and I are owners of Flat Hollow Marina and Resort on Norris Lake. We're a full-service marina with approximately 250 slips and mooring customers. 60 of those are floating houses, and I might add that 20 of those floating houses are rentals which provide additional public access to the lake. I attended and spoke at the Paris landing meeting. I supported the B2 alternative with no sunset, and I still do. After our 3-minute presentations were made there were a few points that I was surprised to hear from Mr. Johnson's presentation, and I would like to address some of them now. First, none of our floating houses, or houseboats for that matter, are used for habitation. They are used only to provide access to the lake. Floating homes have basically the same utilization as a factory houseboat, with the exception that they do not cruise the lake. Second, as far as floating houses are concerned, there is not an issue of private use of public waterways. They actually provide public access to the lake rather than deny or restrict it. Whether access to the lake is obtained by a floating house, houseboat, ski boat, or fishing boat, they are all privately owned, and they all provide access to the lake. Some of the floating houses and houseboats are rented, which even provides more public access. The third point is the floating houses are not granted access in perpetuity. All floating houses, at least 98% of them, are located in the marina harbor, renting space with an annual lease with our marinas. They are assigned a spot by the marina owner. If they or a factory houseboat owner does not meet the provision of the lease is terminated and they are evicted. If they decide to move to another marina, they are easily pushed like a barge, or if they decide to leave the lake, they are dismantled just as TVA is recommending that they do in 30 years, with a 30-year sunset. Finally, as you've heard, today, there are here with this many speakers and many more to come that the policy choice for the board will have a severe economic impact on the state and local economies, the state and local tax collections, and individual floating homeowners and marinas. In fact, those marinas that have 60% or so floating houses on Norris will likely face bankruptcy when the sunset begins. We would hope that the solution could be found that would not involve a sunset, and I thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, turn it back over to you.
Yes, sir.
For the benefit of everybody who's been talking about floating houses, for the benefit of everybody who's been talking about floating houses, I'm curious if y'all have an idea about what you think a reasonable inspection fee is. Now, I voted against the resolution at the last meeting because I objected to the sunset provision, but I certainly encourage our monitoring it and making sure that any floating homes are kept up to standards. But I'm hearing a lot of comment about excessive fees or reasonable fees. I don't think we've set any yet. So I'm just kind of curious, as y'all go forward, about what you regard the group as a reasonable fee, because we have to pay an employee to go out and inspect the place. And I know I'm catching you flat-footed, but as these people come up and speak to us, I think that's something that would be helpful to our staff and to the board. I totally don't mind that. I'm kind of asking it in deference to Rebecca. I think that might be helpful to her as she meets with these different groups.
I don't know the answer
That's right.
to it, so let's defer that. But thank you for your question, Mike.
So, okay, thank you.
When are we going to take our break?
We have after Mr. Troll.
Okay.
Unless you keep asking questions, then we're going to go further.